So what I have done with when I work with people who are either new to pattern libraries or they have some experience with pattern libraries is I've learned that everybody is different. So some people like to work in Adobe software. Some people like to work in Microsoft software. Some people like to work in, Google and Google Docs. So whatever software you prefer, just have it open, and basically all you need to have is the ability to put text in it and just to put graphic images in it. So like screenshots, or if you see an image from another place that you like and you want to use it for reference, that's all. These are things that go in a pattern library. And I've been doing pattern libraries probably since 2002, so a little over 20 years. And they have helped me so much. And Noreen and I have wanted to give these tutorials for a couple of years now. So thank you all for coming, and please feel free to ask questions anytime. So, okay, that's me. And my background is actually in life sciences, genetics and developmental biology. Even though I have, master's degree in Japanese and Asian studies, which is how I ended up in Hawaii, I've always been a scientist, and I've always been fascinated with how people find things and how people learn to find things. So there are human things we all have to consider. So I consider how the human brain works, how the eyes work, how your hands work, because when we're talking about different types of ways that people interact, because they don't always use a computer. They might use a tablet, they might use some kind of smart, mobile device. And so this is what I do. And so I'm always keeping track of how people find things and also how people use things, because one of the things I've learned in usability is that people say what they're going to do, and then they do the exact opposite. And it's funny to watch. So that is what I do. And this is very much what this is based on. So what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to take breaks, and please signal me if you're all ready for a break. And the first part we're really going to go over is what pattern libraries are and what they aren't, because a lot of people use terms like short codes and design systems as synonyms, and they're not really synonyms, but they are related. I'm going to show you some examples of some pattern libraries, and I'm going to focus on some design patterns that I have found to be the most important. And that's why I want to be able to start out with these. And if you already have them, update them if you need to. If you don't have them, these are great ones to get started with. And our exercise will be identifying patterns. And it's harder to identify patterns than I thought it was when I first started out. So, and some people just have a knack for it. So that'd be great. And then we'll go into the different methodologies, because I'm not going to do HTML code in this or any kind of programming in this. But so if you are a programmer, I'm not ignoring you, because you'll find that a design pattern that's coming from a front end or a back end developer is going to look different from a pattern library that comes from an information architect or that comes from a designer. And then these teams work together, or if they're all the same person, all the better, to describe and label these. And the label is really important, because if the label is not unique and if the label is not descriptive, it it could crash your website. And that's the last thing we want is gateway sites, because they're deemed as very, very trustworthy websites. And then how we go about describing these different patterns. And I've got some links for you. I've got some tools that are good examples. And if you need something specifically from me, this presentation, which I have uploaded the link to Dropbox, just email me. I'll just email you back. And because I am a bibliography goddess. I really love bibliographies. Don't ask me why. All right, so we use symbols. So this is a good idea. And this is a bad idea. And these are tools that can help you increase the effectiveness of your gateway site. And sometimes there are advantages and disadvantages in the same screenshot. So I will explain those whenever you see that. So some of the examples that you're going to see, I had to get from archive.org. So I did put the links to that. So they might look different. They might no longer exist because I took a screenshot a long time ago. But please keep in mind that I'm trying to explain principles and guidelines, and Noreen's going to jump in, especially for the accessibility items. And also Noreen is an excellent archivist. And so that is also a design pattern, is how to effectively archive. And it's different for different types of sites. So you might not see it. And if you need a better screenshot, if I have it, just email me and I'll send it to you. Okay. So understanding pattern libraries. They're basically user interfaces. So in a user interface, I prefer to call it a human and a computer interface, because it's two items, a technology as well as a human being, that are interacting. And these are proven, very well documented recommendations for solving frequently occurring problems. And you'll find that one person in your group is very well versed about something, like Noreen's a perfect example. She is an outstanding archivist, and other people in the group might not be. So we will take recommendations from the person who is a subject matter expert. And the idea is to benefit end users, but it also benefits the gateway site as well, because you are solving their problems quickly and easily. And also these design patterns and these pattern libraries are living documents. As technologies change, as they evolve, such as we're seeing artificial intelligence right now, and with Google also announcing that, there are artificial intelligence technology recently, we're going to see our pattern libraries evolve. Well, what's really interesting is that a lot of the things we're discussing today also informs artificial intelligence very, very well. So I am very glad to be able to say that. On a website, because an app is different than a website, pattern library is reusable. It can be part of a design, or it can be something that's unique. So I commonly will separate a website from a mobile application. And as I said before, what an information architect needs, a designer needs, and a developer needs from a pattern library might be very different things. Even the people who write the content might have a different type of pattern library. And sometimes these smaller pattern libraries can be combined into a larger pattern library. And when that happens, it doesn't happen that often, but when it happens, it's great, because it makes your life easier for your gateway sites. And the analogy I like to use is water. And I'm hoping everybody knows that H2O is water. And all it is that, see, water, blue. And it's an oxygen molecule with two hydrogens, an oxygen atom with two hydrogen atoms. So we're looking at a molecule versus atoms, and that's what atomic design is. So a component library consists of atoms. So think about headings on your website. They're usually written as H1, H2, H3, H4, H1 through H6. And there's nothing very special about them except in accessibility, they're huge because that's how people navigate if they're blind or they have low vision. And they're also important for search engines because you're communicating to search engines and artificial intelligence that you think something is important because you put something inside of a heading. But a heading in and of itself is an atom. It's not a molecule like water. But if you combine a heading with something else, so let's say you have a headline and then you have a tagline that follows it, or a byline that follows it, or you have a photo at the top of the page that indicates to people what is the content you are going to view on this page or other type of web document. That's when it becomes a pattern library. And I do this very often on category pages where the pattern library will be a combination of a headline, a byline, and a graphic image. So you will see these types of things all the time on websites. And so one of the pattern libraries we're definitely going to go over today is the top of content, because people use that content all of the time. And eye tracking studies have shown if the H1, which is the primary headline, is formatted properly and placed in the right area of the screen, it's about 3 inches down from the screen on a desktop or a laptop computer, people read it and they pay attention to it. And if they are not satisfied with the content that is in that primary headline, they will not stay on your page and they will leave it. So that is why that top of content area, another reason that top of content area is so important. And that is why that pattern library is very, very important. So using H2O, I just did 3 simple things. Okay, meta tag optimization tips, a search usability perspective. Okay, that's an H, that's formatted as an H1 or the primary headline of the page. It usually has a very large font or a typeface. It doesn't have to have color. If you want to have it black, that's fine. But if you're going to color that primary headline is black, make sure that text is large. And number 2 is a byline or a subject tagline. And one of the things that a lot of people don't do, and they should do, is look, there's a reason I picked this, is look at search engine optimization, and here is an abbreviation. So whenever you see abbreviations or acronyms, you need to spell it out at the top of your screen. So you might have used the abbreviation here, well then spell it out in this byline, or do it like this where you spell it out up here. Or if you're doing it in an intro paragraph underneath this feature image, which is the 3rd item, then you may have everything at the top of the page. And remember, when we're talking about websites, the home page is not the only point of entry. Most of the pages on your site are usually points of entry. So you have to spell out abbreviations and acronyms. And I see this all the time on gateway websites. It seems like it's redundant to the gateway site owners, but it's not redundant to users, and it's not redundant to technologies. So definitely have that. The other thing too is do not repeat things. So anytime there's an image on your screen, a screen reader will read what's called alternative text. So that's just text that loads in the event the image doesn't load, or if somebody is using a screen reader. Imagine how this sounds if somebody took this text or even repeated this main headline and put the same text in here. How is that going to sound to a person who is blind, or a person who has low vision, or a person who just is working on something else, and so they're just using the screen reader to read to them, because some people are very audio inclined. I meet a lot of people who have 20/20 vision, but they just prefer things to be read to them. And think about Audible. So these are even people that don't have a hearing or a seeing disability. They just want these things read out to them. But this is H2O, 1, 2, 3. So here's an example of what not to do. So what's this page about? So if you ignore the mobile version, what's this page about? You can't tell. Why? This huge graphic image, this huge feature image is taking up too much screen real estate, far too much screen real estate. I do agree, being a designer developer, that's a nice looking image, but it is far too large. General rule of thumb is you don't want your feature image to take up more than 1/3 of your screen. So that's just a little tip. And the other thing is the solution is so simple. All the designer developers had to do was take this H1 headline and this byline and move it to the top of the screen, and that would have solved the problem right there. Now, something else they didn't do is UI. UI can mean a lot of things. Okay, I'm from University of Illinois. So UI means University of Illinois. Doesn't mean University of Iowa, doesn't mean University of Idaho, doesn't mean any of that. It means user interfaces. So somewhere here, or just use user interfaces here and then UI, and then that person's interface is fine. So that is a huge tip, because as I said, I'm presenting a poster on poster day, and that is one of the issues that people have. A huge issue that people have with gateway sites is the use of acronyms and abbreviations, but people don't know what they mean, especially if you invented something new, which is really great that you invent something new, but people got to know what it is, and always treat pages as a point of entry. So we definitely want to keep that in mind. So the other thing that's really important is something called front loading. And that's just moving the most important words in front of headings. I believe HOA meant headings, not titles. They're different things. So think headlines. It increases the likelihood that they get noticed, because when people look at a screen, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around. When people look at a screen, they tend to look directly in the middle, about 3 inches down, and that establishes to them, am I on the right page? And then on mobile, what people do is they look in almost the same place and then they scroll immediately. So there's a level of redundancy. So don't be afraid to be a little bit redundant on your websites for that reason. But people's eyes stop once they see the words that are most important to them. So try not to, especially at the top of the page, try to put the user's language at the front of what you're writing. as opposed to towards the end of what you're writing. I'm not saying that, to keyword stuff, to put 5 keywords in a row and it sounds like gibberish. I'm just saying, learn the user's language, and there are keyword research tools. Google has a keyword research tool. Bing has a keyword research tool. I don't know if any of you have heard of answerthepublic.com. Answerthepublic.com is a question and answer site, and basically it takes the main questions people asked on Google and gets that data. And then there's also another software called Also Asked. And if you ever go into Google and you see the questions in the middle, that's where they're getting their data from. And then you can find out on web search engines, what are the questions people are asking. The other thing is to interview people who are using your website and listen to what they have to say. Don't interrupt them, and ask, can you tell me more about this? Can you show me this? And you'll find out what your user's language is, and so you know what words to put in those headings. And I'm doing that right now as part of a research project, and it's very, very cool. So hope you guys get to do that too. So here is another content example, and it's more than H2O, so there's more than 3 items, but we'll highlight a few of them. So the first one is a black, very large text headline, and notice what I did. User experience. I didn't expect people to know what that was, so they put it in there. Accessibility is repeated in a way so that if people skip this, it's right here. This is something my editors write. And just so you know, if you do have an editor, if you have somebody higher up that takes over, what we do is we just ask that person, could you please put these words in the byline? And that way you've got your behind covered. If you cannot get a byline, then just put it in the first paragraph. There's a link to the author page, which is one way to archive content, is by author. And it also has social media icons, and we're going to get to that in the next screen. But boom, boom, boom. And then, number 4 are the social media icons. It's really important, if your target audience does use social media, is to put them in the order of the social media that is used. So in this instance, Facebook, the new Twitter, email, and then LinkedIn. And the email specifically goes to a page that goes directly to the author. Okay, so that's another type of content, example that would be used as a pattern library. Here's something that's a little similar. I don't know if any of you have heard of the aesthetic usability effect. And that is that if somebody thinks something is attractive on your website, they will assume that your site is easier to use than a site that they don't think is attractive. But the effect is very, very temporary. So that's one of the reasons that I put this in here, because I thought this was an important thing for you to remember. So the aesthetic usability effect, it's a very short headline, but that's exactly what this article is about. So instead of doing a byline, they do something called a summary. And notice that there's UI in here. It's something that should be spelled out. And here's UI here. That's also something somewhere in this small screen, it should be spelled out. So they have this archived by the author, but they also have it divided up into what categories they would be in. So visual design, user testing, and psychology and UX. And just a basic rule of thumb for those of you who don't do social media icons, the ideal size for females in the US, it is about 45 by 45 pixels. For men in the US, it's more like 53 by 53 pixels. So if you're in that range, you're safe. I would make these icons much bigger, and they should be about 8 pixels apart, so there isn't any accidental tapping or accidental touches, because that annoys users a lot with mobile and touch screens. So they have shared this article, and they also have a really good intro paragraph. But look at what they did, because a person might not, who comes to this site, if they're familiar with the aesthetic usability effect, and if they know Katie Moran, that's great. But if a person comes to this site and they've never heard of this, what happens at the bottom of the page is, after the article, it shared this article on Twitter, no longer Twitter, LinkedIn, and email. And this is a good way, and so it's in the same order that it is at the top. So even though these items are not next to each other, you know, this is at the top of the article and this is at the bottom of the article, they are related. And so this would be considered a pattern library. So now I have a question. Have any of you done a pattern library similar to this or similar to this smaller one? And by the way, you can tell on your competitors. My competitors don't do this. Good. Your competitors don't do it. That means you can do it and you can beat your competitors. That's how I look at it. So this is a design pattern I would really like to see all gateway sites get in the habit of. So here's another site, and it's not a gateway site. I don't do gateway sites unless get people specific permission. But there was a study done quite a while ago, and it was very, very interesting, because almost every site I know has a help section, because people always need help. Some things aren't that obvious. And people use accordions. People associate frequently asked questions, which is why I put in answer the public and also ask. They associate frequently asked questions with an accordion. So what is the best symbol? A caret. I wouldn't have called that a caret. To me, it's a down arrow. Plus sign, minus sign, the greater than sign, 2 diamonds, or nothing at all. So we all call them different things, but these are supposedly the formal names for them. And we want to know what these things mean and what people think they will do. So what do you think a caret does? I think a caret is going to open something underneath it, because that's where the arrow is pointing. When I see a plus sign, if I see it on something that looks like an accordion, especially if it has a Q in front of it, because in the United States, a Q represents a question. And shitsumon is the word in Japanese for question. So it looked very different in Japan. So that's what a plus sign would mean to me. Arrow sign means that whatever's going to open is going to open pointing in the direction. For me, it's my right hand. For you, it's your left. And the 2 diamonds, I have no clue what that means. And there is also a pile in usability called I don't know. Some people label it more colorfully than I don't know, but that's okay. And then if there is to me, this is a up arrow. It means, okay, this is open, and if I click it, it will close it. So that is very common. This is a very common way of presenting it. So this is how people did it on the Ferrari site. So did this match your mental models? Did my mental model match your mental model? Okay, I don't own a Ferrari, so, and I don't plan on owning a Ferrari. So I would want to know what Ferrari people who are going to buy a Ferrari or already own a Ferrari that needs to go to this website, you know, perhaps for maintenance, what these things mean. And this is what they found, is that they found the caret sign, which is the down arrow, got significantly more taps than any other symbol. And that is why, if you're going to use an accordion, use the down arrow. Wouldn't use the others. The other thing to learn about this pattern is the accordion, is you surround the Q&As in the accordion that briefly describes what that collection of question and answers is about. So my big thing with Q&As is for questions and for answers to frequent questions about keyword phrase 1, keyword phrase 2, and keyword phrase 3, please select one of the links below. And then at the bottom, I would summarize what's the main call to action that you want people to do. Do you want them to fill out a form? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to email you? What is it that you want them to do? Make sure you have that on there. General rule of thumb for questions and answers, minimum of 3, maximum of 16. Because if people see a giant page full of questions, they'll see it as a giant wall of text and they're not going to read that. So I try to stay between 7 and 12. That's kind of my magic number that I've learned throughout the years. And if once you get, if you're the closer you get to 6, the more you got to separate it out. Question? Okay, cool. The next thing, and this is something people overlook with FAQ accordions, is have the option to expand and collapse all, because it's so easy to do. It's so easy for screen readers. It's so easy just to have people click or tap that, make sure they're far enough apart so that people don't accidentally expand or collapse something. So if a person only wants to look at one question, that's great. But if they want to scan the page quickly, they can just hit those 2 buttons or those 2 links, and you've got that taken care of. As I said before, the caret's the obvious choice. And there is something that I thought was really interesting about this, and I'm going to let the people know for our lovely Science Gateways site. So let's go to it. Free consulting. I love it. Community links to the community page. This is very well done.
Shari, I think you're only sharing the
Oh, okay.
one window, so you'll have to switch to the other window.
All right. Can you, all right, hold on here. Science Gateways. Can you see it?
Starting. Yep, there it is.
All right. I'm going to click on community because it's a good link. All right. If you click on community, go to the community page. Go click on education. You go to the education page. Nicely done. Easy to read. I love it. If you click on the down arrow, you get our lovely conference. And by the way, I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So yay, I get to go to Pittsburgh. And they better win on Sunday too. Well, here's the thing. This study determined that people don't like this. They actually want the community link and this link to go to the same page. They don't want this to open the menu. They want this to open the menu as well. So the solution to this is very, very simple. Make sure this opens the menu. And if you need a link to the community page, the word overview in the drop-down menu will open up. So I just noticed this literally this morning. But so as part of that study, I just wanted you all to be aware of people don't like that. So, and I would test it too, because just because a person recommends it for one type of site does not mean it doesn't work for other types of sites. So, general rule of thumb. So that's why this bullet point is here. Open a submenu or go directly to a different page. And don't use right alignment. The reason for that is something called Fitts law. And have you ever heard of that? I hate when Adobe does that to me. Fitts law means that people are more likely to click on something or touch something or tap on something or do some kind of action if the closer it is to something. So you definitely want to have your down arrow close to whatever text it is, because if it looks like it's too much in between, people won't know what to click. And what they'll do is they'll click to figure out where it goes, and then you have an erosion of trust. And so that's just not what people like. So do any of you use accordions on your website, whether it's a FAQ section or do you use drop-down menus? Are we too shy to say? That's one of the reasons I put this, because this is a design pattern I see not only for questions and answers, but also for drop-down menus at the top of the screen. And we definitely want to indicate to people that there's a drop-down menu that's going to open. So we want to make sure that people can open the drop-down menu with a click, which is what SGCI site did fantastically. Just make sure it's done on the text as well as the icon. And this is a study in semiotics, which is a study of symbols. And make sure your symbols always have labels, because if your symbol doesn't have a label, with few exceptions, about the only two labels that people know are the magnifying glass icon and the home icon. And the magnifying glass icon means search, but to some people it looks like the letter Q. So you have to make sure it genuinely looks like a long magnifying glass. Are there any questions?
Hello.
Yes.
At this point in the presentation, I don't know if this has been covered, but what if in creating a website, well, two questions. One, let's say there's the idea of using a symbol such as the 3 straight lines, which is also known as the hamburger, and that's to signify to click on there that that is a menu.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So in some ways it could be good to have those 3 lines, especially after people realize what they mean. But some people are not going to know what they mean, or maybe if English is not their native language, to help them out. So what might be the solution there, of how to approach that's
That has been studied extensively. And it's really funny because I have a niece who is a total phone, a smartphone addict, and she didn't know it was called a hamburger menu. And I just thought how cute that was. Um, it is better to have it with the label menu.
and is it possible to have both?
Yes, you can. It's better to have menu, but and the three lines, and they don't have to all be the same color. I've seen people do the word menu in black text, and then the three lines match their logo, and people understood that it was menu. Some people only use the word menu, and it looks like a button though. It looks like it's a clickable, touchable button. Um,
Uh-huh.
that works fine. But the best way still to this day to make it perfectly clear is to use the word menu with icons.
Yeah. And if I may, another question, unless someone else has one. Shall I continue?
Sure.
Okay. In preparing the content as far as, how to do things, it could be that, say, on one product or one website, there's more than one developer working on it, and to make sure that they are taking the same style approach. And the other kind of thing that can happen, is that there could be more than one product that a company has, and I'm saying company, but it could be an organization, um, where one programmer is working on one and there's one style there, and then they don't have the consistency, so that when you go to another part of what they offer, that, again, there was not that consistency factor. Can you would talk about that?
That's something that goes in the style guide and as well as the pattern library, because the pattern library, because we're going to click on some links and actually go to some of these pattern libraries. You will see that the specifications that you put in there. So we would say use the hamburger, use the three lines, the hamburger icon. Make sure, like, let's say your target audience is mostly male. And then we want to make it bigger. We want to make it a bigger touch target. So we want to go in the, up in the 50s and 50 pixels. And then we would want the label menu and, specify the color, and then, make it, have a graphic designer or any kind of designer make it, or you can even take one from another site and copy and paste it and say, do it like this. It doesn't have to be round. You don't have to have a border on it. It just looks like it's a touch target because it's round. And also anything that's round on a responsive design is going to stand out, because in a responsive design, it's a grid. So like on the Ferrari site, you see that a lot of this stuff is very much on a grid. But what stands out on the site is not only, the color here, but it's also this, because it's round. If you look at this, the letter Q is round. Q is round. And if you look down here, you can see parentheses. So scannability, part of doing pattern libraries is to increase scannability and therefore increase engagement. So, and then when you have a meeting of the minds, because a pattern library is very much a group effort, and you sit down, and one of the things that you include in a pattern library are references. So references, so I would include a link to the study that found that hamburger menus work best when they have the label menu next to them.
The references, yeah.
So the references are huge. So that if somebody wants to argue with you or debate something with you, and websites are always works in progress, cite something or cite multiple studies, so that people understand that we're not building this because it's our personal opinion. This is based on science. This is based on eye tracking. This is based on usability studies. So they could be qualitative studies and quantitative studies.
Mm-hmm.
So and you can put it shows in web analytics that people clicked on this more.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing to tell people is where to put it. Upper corner, not at the tippy top, because the tippy top is hard to reach with a thumb. So you put it a little further down.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So
Thank you, Shari.
thank you. Now, do any of you have, I don't know if any of you have a usability or a library science and information sciences department, because a lot of times, if you work with your universities, students are dying to do portfolios, and that's something I did at DePaul University. Is we worked with their students to help us with our website, so they would have their own portfolio, and I was able to teach, to show them, I just asked them, do you want me to teach you accessible design? Yes. Okay, I'll teach you accessible design. I was required to teach usability. I was required to teach SEO. And it was great because they were all students and they all were willing to learn, and they all had wonderful questions. University of Michigan also offers it. Kent State University also offers it. Does CUNY offer it, Noreen?
Yep.
City University of New York. So you'd be really surprised that you could get these types of items to go in your pattern libraries working at universities. You can also work with organizations. Like, I know there's a World Information Architecture organization, and they're working on their mentorship program. I mentor students at University of Illinois. There are a lot of mentorships at various universities, and usually gateway sites get priority. You'd be really surprised. So if these things I'm mentioning to you are not in, you're not a subject matter expert in these things, you're a subject matter expert in your own fields, that's fine. You can find subject matter experts more easily than you might imagine. So they can help you with all of this. Okay, so here is an FAQ page. I grabbed this sucker. Pop quiz. What would you change about it? Can you? Yeah, I just took a screenshot.
I can't see anything personally.
Yeah, you're not sharing.
I am not. I am very sorry. Let me try again. Share screen. Dun, dun, dun. Can you see it now?
Yep.
All right. Well, then you all get an A because the instructor messed up.
We need to change the arrows to carrots.
Yes. Very good. I'm laughing because if you saw what I just wrote down, you know how I spelled carrots? the kind you eat. Because it said juice. What else would you change?
Well, it needs to have that. You mentioned the thing at the top about saying what the page is about. I mean, it does say FAQ, but specifically.
exactly. So it's called aboutness. Um, and I'll put a link in the chat for aboutness during break. But yes, should be an intro paragraph and there or a byline, because FAQ recipes is too general. So I would even change that headline. What kind of recipes?
Breadcrumbs.
Yes. What kind of breadcrumbs?
At the top, you should always provide a way for your person to be able to find their way back to where they were and how to get back to home.
So location-based breadcrumbs. So where people know where they're at within the hierarchy of the website. Yes. And that's something you could add to the top of content, just so you know. You could very easily add breadcrumbs, location-based breadcrumbs as part of that. And there's so many reasons to use breadcrumb links. The main one is findability and trust, because it establishes a sense of place. And even though people don't fix on breadcrumb links, they do scan them. So as soon as you ask a person what page are they on, their eye tracking immediately goes to that headline, and they almost always look at breadcrumbs. So really, that was good. That was a good call. Yay. Are we giving away TVs or iPads or something? All right, next year. What else would you change? Yay. If you, Noreen will talk about this tomorrow. I don't know if you're going to her event, but there's a tool I like to use called WebAIM, WEBAIM, their color contrast tool. This is hard to read. And I am somebody who is considered a person who has low vision. If I take off my glasses, I am considered legally blind. And a lot of times what I just tell people to do is back away from the screen. So if you have 20/20 vision, just back away from the screen. So you're about 6 feet away, and tell me how easy text is to read. So I think this would do a lot better if they just change the color so that it's a lot easier to read. The font is a good choice. I think that's Georgia. The click and tap signifiers, you agree. So we got that. Location-based breadcrumb trails, we got that. And they just needed the links expand all and collapse all, because those are a lot of questions they have there. So that's why this was a no. Don't do that. That's how my dad taught me how to drive. Don't do that. So, have you guys ever seen what a fully coded out pattern library looks like? So I took screenshots, but I definitely want you to look at these, especially the one for IBM, Carbon Design System. It's actually very well done. This is MailChimp's, and this is one that is for their app, just so you know. But look at how they have it, that you can do. How should the buttons look? What the dialog boxes, the feedback, form elements is huge, because that is usually the main call to action on a lot of gateway sites are, fill out this form, and navigation items. And then what your developer can do is put this in here and you can just copy paste this. And then you can change the items in here for each of your drop down menus. So you don't have to know how to code. You just need to know, I can change this. And then there's notes. Local navigation is used to jump, blah, 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 blah. And then this tells you how big it is. And it also shows you related. Here are items that are related to the navigation list. For example, what happens if a person hovers over users? What happens if a person hovers over the word settings? What if they hover over contact information? Does contact information stand out more? Because we see that like the word login. If you want people to log in or set up an account, that might look different than the other items. So there's always room for notes and settings, billing, extras, integration. So this is really well done. So MailChimp is often used as an example of a pattern library in a lot of presentations and a lot of links I've noticed. But would I expect a designer who doesn't know how to code to do this? No, I wouldn't. Would I expect a copywriter to know how to do this? No, I wouldn't. But this is something I would expect from the development team, so that the development of the website goes a lot faster. So here's Starbucks. What I love about this previous one is, what section are you in? You're in navigation and you're in overview. Here's Starbucks. What section are you in?
Buttons?
Yep. And I love the way you said that, because that's exactly what users say. When I did some testing for Starbucks, and this was not obvious to people. So this is something that it is their color, and green is my favorite color in spite of the fact that I'm wearing purple today. They need to make this a lot more obvious. Default, dark theme, rewards theme. So this is default, hover, and it's not as obvious as it is on MailChimp. And there's no notes. So take a look at Starbucks. You'll be really surprised. And if you're confused, that means that Starbucks hasn't done a good enough job in their pattern library to explain things. But if you have somebody who is a front end or a back end programmer, this might make sense to them. So always test with the people who are actually using your interface. Now, this is the site that was actually very, very famous. I believe it was from Denmark. It's not there. You actually have to go to archive.org to get it. And this is more of the pattern library that you would start out with. You give the name of the pattern. What is the problem? What is the solution? And you can take a screenshot of something that you think solves this, and cite it properly. Add any notes that you would change about this, for example, and use this when you are doing blah 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 blah. And here are guidelines. And then this goes further down the page. I have no idea why this person called this doormat navigation. To me, this is a footer navigation. And he also showed more examples. There are things I would put in here that he didn't put in here, and maybe this because pattern libraries are still relatively new. Is more examples is fantastic, but also what other types of pattern libraries would link to this. So, for example, at the very, very bottom, you tend to put legal links or government links. One of them that I highly recommend that people get because it's starting to become more and more law is accessibility policy. So you tend to see the privacy policy, the copyright, accessibility policy. You know, if you're with a US site, I worked on the CDC site last year, and we always had a link to, you know, the main site. But you spell all of this out so that whenever your pattern library is shared among teams, you understand each other. So a person has to know how to program this. And I've actually done this. So I adapted that footer navigation, and here it is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of making this a separate category, we just called it popular health centers, and it's just alphabetically lists. I would never put a link put more health centers. And notice that the order that this is put in the order that people complete their tasks. These are the main categories. People wanted to see slideshows. We were really surprised about with health, especially if you're in the skin category. People want to look at skin pictures because they're concerned about cancer. That's usually the main reason. And so this is all in the order that people want to see them. This is easy to scan because it's alphabetical. And this changes depending on the season. So allergies, if we see allergies first, it usually means it's spring or the summer. If we see vaccinations on this list, we know that it's August. It's probably school time. Cold and flu is usually featured more highly in the winter, then about us, and then whatever social media icons these are. So you can take that fat footer, and that's what it's called now. It's not doormat navigation. It's called fat footer. And you can adapt it and then label it something different. So if you have one of those websites that you want to get people deeper into a category, do it this way. Make sure it spans 2 columns. You know, make sure that if these are not clickable links, none of these should be clickable links. If all of these are clickable links, make sure, even this one, follow us on, be consistent, because it's that lack of consistency that confuses users. So I would call this, I would label this footer, footer navigation and what kind it is. So this would be health centers. And since I see allergies, I would call it health centers, footer, health centers, spring, because I see the word allergies on there. So have any of you come up with a pattern library that looks like this or something like this? There's something that should be near the footer that could also be added very easily. If you go to Amazon.com, what they have is they have a little bar across the top, and it says back to top. So you can do this. If people don't see what they want, they can just click the back to top and they'll go to the back to the top of the screen and continue to navigate your site. So people are still engaged with your site. So are there any questions? I think the only thing I would change on this is if people want, people who have low vision or people who are using a certain type of device, this might not be easy to read, because usually gray text is difficult to read than black text. So putting a little bullet, because what'll happen is if text wraps, people can't tell which is a link and which isn't a link, and they'll click or they'll tap multiple times. And this is something that's called minesweeping, where people click or tap multiple times to see where a link leads. And children love minesweeping. Teenagers tolerate minesweeping. Adults can't stand it. So adding just a little tiny bullet to make sure that people know exactly that these items are grouped together would make this a lot more usable. And it's also something that is relatively easy to program. And what would I do? As Chris mentioned, I would definitely put a link to that study about minesweeping. In fact, that's on usability.gov. Okay, did you guys want to take a break now?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, how long? 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 should be good. The the Starbucks slide gave me an idea. Today's Yay Day. I don't know if I have time to go out and grab one, but you get 2 for 1. But I'll just go and make my own. Anyway, 10 minutes and we'll be back. I'm going to turn off the recording and we'll start again when we come back.
Okay. The first thing to notice is about the hamburger menu, the citations. One is from CUNY, so go CUNY. The other one is from Norway. I'm descended from Vikings. And oh, that's all that matters is those two. But no, these are the types of things that I will put in a pattern library, because the main thing about them is they can't be your personal opinion. These pattern libraries are for people who are not you. They're going to help you make your gateway site a lot easier to use, which is what we're about to get to. But they're ultimately for your end users. And that's why I wanted to point out that these are things that are important for pattern libraries, because what's going to happen with a lot of science gateways is some science gateways, the people that are running the science gateway, they might, like we were talking about Joe used to be at the University of Illinois, and now he's at University of Pittsburgh. So, you know, if he were working on a pattern library, he would have to hand that off to a different person. So you're going to have teams that work on your site. So pattern libraries help you collaborate. And it is a lot easier when you are giving we are science gateways, so we're all scientists, but it's very easy for us to get into our personal opinions. Well, I think this and I think that. And it's good to have places that you can cite to back up what you have to say. Noreen has, are you going to show biases tomorrow, Noreen?
Yes, I am going to talk about cognitive biases in particular because of the new focus on cognitive disabilities in the latest web content accessibility guidelines.
Oh, thank goodness. So go see Noreen. She's got everything covered. We work well together. It's just, I love it. So, and even a person who's a search engine optimizer. Now, I'm not talking about, the snake oil salesman. And yes, I understand they exist, and they exist in countries around the world. Not sure about Antarctica yet, but I'm sure they'll probably get there. But somebody who's like in an information science department, or Noreen's teaching search engine optimization at CUNY. So people like that can help your site be more accessible and findable, and they will contribute to the pattern library, and they can also help you if you're having any kinds of issues convincing somebody to do something. The pattern libraries ensure quality and consistency. So if you're doing any kind of quality assurance, you have that, and users want consistency because it's a trust factor. I'm not saying make your site boring and using every single, everything on your site's a pattern. That's not natural. It's not human. There always needs to be a human element to your website. But if the links are consistent, if the visited links are consistent, if the focus is consistent, if it uses the same tone of voice, and even the calls to action are consistent and placed where people expect to see them, you'll even have more user engagement, which is another thing that you would like. So when people return to your website, it's a lot nicer. The patterns focus on the context of a problem and the solution. And that's something, that word context is very, very important. That's why I wanted you to look at that older website, the wheelie.com website on archive.org. If not, I have a screenshot of it in this presentation deliberately, because when you write out the problem, try to put the problem and the solution in the right context, because what might be an issue on one part of your site might not be an issue on a different part of your site. So a number of people that I've worked with at Science Gateways, the different types, they work with data sets. And there are things that work on a data set site that I would never do on a site that doesn't use data sets. So and the data visualizations also are different. So data visualizations would be like charts and graphs and stuff like that. And so writing out the context of the problem and solution and describing it is really important. And ultimately, what ends up happening, because they are patterns and they're justifiable patterns, you reduce time, you reduce costs, and handoff to other people is much easier. It's a much faster and efficient process than if you don't have pattern libraries. And it might seem at first, for those of you who've never done them, it might seem daunting at first, but over time, it becomes easier and easier because you get better and better. I find that people get this aptitude and they can just spot a pattern. And once they spot a pattern and once they get used to making a pattern library, then it becomes easier as you get more practice at it, just like playing a sport or anything like that. So a short code, I don't know if any of you use WordPress, but short codes are not quite pattern libraries, but some of them can be. They allow people to add items to a website, and you don't have to code it if you don't want to, but I would still have somebody who's an accessibility expert who has technical skills, and a search optimizer who also has technical skills take a look at it, so they're user friendly and technology friendly, and also AI artificial intelligence friendly. But they simplify the additions such as tabs, accordions, and all these different things without you having to write any code directly. So this could actually make, short codes can actually make your pattern libraries easier. So, buttons, what color button do you want? What size do you want? So you can make sure the touch target is large enough. Tool tips. I wouldn't do accordions like this. I wouldn't do tabs like this either. These back tabs are hard to read. And I know Noreen's going to talk about tabs tomorrow because I asked her to. And different kinds of alert boxes. There's another one where I was working on a WordPress site and I saw a table. And that's something that I see on a lot of gateway sites, is the use of tables. And this one, as a short code, was actually pretty well done. It's just missing some things that I would normally put on a table. So normally I would say table 1 and what it describes. What's in this table? And then I would probably put a caption at the bottom too, to briefly summarize what's in the table. And then for those of you who are interested in SEO, in a table, the most important words are here up in the headers and here. So just make a L that tipped over. And if you surround these by words that interest people, you've got a really good pattern library. So short codes are a way of starting a pattern library where you're not actually starting from scratch. But do keep in mind that a short code is not necessarily a pattern library in and of itself. So, but I wouldn't hesitate. There are some really good, if I can remember the names of them. Do you remember the name, Noreen, of is it Genesis? I think it might be something else. There's a really, really good WordPress.
Was it Genesis or Generate Press?
Generate Press.
Okay.
Generate Press, the coding is outstanding in it. So for those of you that are using WordPress, highly recommend Generate Press, and they're not paying me for me to do this. The code is really nice and clean. So you wouldn't really have to bring in an SEO to clean it up. So highly recommend that. Thank you. So exercise 1. Guess what we get to do? All we're looking to do is identify patterns. So what 1 or 2 patterns would you like to go into your pattern library, and why is that important to it? And also, when you look at patterns, can you identify things that your site should not have? Because I find there's a greater list of, as I call them, the don't do that's, than there is of other things. So I am going to stop sharing because I would love for somebody to volunteer a site. It doesn't have to be your own gateway. It can be somebody else's gateway. It doesn't even have to be a gateway site, but it would be very, very helpful if I knew what you guys would like assistance with, and can point you in the right direction and maybe point out some tools or some links that might help you out. And like I said, you can volunteer somebody else's gateway if you want. That happens all the time. Does anybody want to volunteer a site? Somebody has to volunteer a site. I will see if I can find one. Because I'm going to go eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
I'll volunteer one.
All right. Yay. Thank you. Can you make her presenter? Please.
Oh, really? I was just going to give you the link, doggone it.
Oh, give me. All right. I'll do it. Hold on. Now, keep in mind, I'm on Safari. So,
Yes, not a problem.
and it's an older version. And see what I said? There's Oslo and there's CUNY. So there we go. All right. What site?
It is that site right there.
Hold on. Let me get to. Hey. Yeah. Sorry. I get enthusiastic for my alma mater. Oh, I
So-
love you guys. I love you guys.
This is the Center for Artificial Intelligence. Our website is done based on a template that was created by NCSA and that is managed by our comms department. It is in WordPress, and it
Why isn't it loading? Come on, you.
is difficult to edit for me. And sometimes I get frustrated with how the accordions work. So I wanted to see what everybody else's thoughts were.
Okay, which accordions? You talking about the menus?
Yes.
Close this notice. So directory leads to the directory. Okay, if I click the link, it also leads to the directory. Yay! Okay, this goes straight down, so this is good. As somebody with low vision, I would tell you that this gray text is a little hard to read. And also you got to be careful with how gray text is used, because gray text on a computer, it usually means not available.
Mm-hmm.
And we want this to look clickable, and unless you want people to navigate down here. So that has to depend on you. Themes. I usually don't do fly out menus. Just so you know, I find because this is what happens. See, people go
You lose currency.
Yeah, people go. It's normal for people to do the diagonal, and then they have to do it over and over again, and they find that annoying. Industry education. Did you do any information architecture testing to? Okay, good. That worked. Home research. That works. That's really good. Research themes or funded projects. Okay, I can tell you this from a design standpoint. So what happens with hover? So you see how I'm hovering over these links, because they look like links and they are links, which is really good. But what hover is supposed to do, it's supposed to stand out. So all you have to do is stick an underline on that. What happens when I put my cursor over that?
It looks like it goes away.
Exactly, and that's not what you want to communicate. And just so you know, to technology, a lot of times they'll look at that and it seems, and it's they know that things like that should not look the same. And also focus. One of the things, Noreen could talk about this a little more, but the new WCAG guidelines, one of the things that sites are missing is focus. So this loses focus. So like I said, the easiest fix for this is just to, on hover, make it keep the same color, but use an underline. So this is good. You keep these on so that people know where they're at. This has no content. Home. How come that doesn't look clickable?
Like I said, this is a template that is given to us to utilize. And some of it I'm not happy with, but at least you're seeing some of the same things that I was wondering about.
Yeah.
Also with the name of the workshop, CFDML, was there an explanation of the acronym somewhere?
No, it looks like that was from 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
And so that was done before I started with the center about a year ago.
And this might seem stupid about spelling out artificial intelligence, but I don't know if you know this, but have you ever heard of Adobe Illustrator?
Mm-hmm.
That's why you got to spell it out. So if you go to a site, I think it's like acronyms. There's I'll look it up and I'll send it to you. I'll send it to everybody. It gives you a lot of acronyms and abbreviations and what they mean. And so one of the things that my students noticed was that like we're the information architecture gateway. So, IA gateway. Okay. Do you know who our biggest competitor is? The state of Iowa.
Oh.
So that's why it's important to spell these out. So you have AI. You have artificial intelligence, innovation. Make sure it's also in text. So like you have it here. So that's perfect. So to me, there's not enough content. That to me, I'm looking at this going, okay, themes. Just left aligned. You can keep these parts centered. AI systems, applied AI, foundational AI, but this is so much easier to read if there is it's left aligned. So, I would have, there's a breadcrumb link. I can't tell these are clickable. They look like they're not available. And like I said, I am low vision. I can still read it. Themes is a little bit hard to read. An intro paragraph would help a lot. And what do you want me to do? So usually that's what I do when I do a site clinic is I don't look at a person's site and then I ask the site owner, okay, and tell me the 3 things you want me to do. What's the first thing you want me to do? And then, okay, I'm not going to do it. Second thing, what do you want me to do? Third thing, because I'm not going to do 1 and 2. Because if you don't have your calls to action clear, crystal clear, and if you can't spit those out, not you personally, but if the site owner can't spit out those calls to action, then the people who are designing and developing and writing the site are going to have problems because they don't know what the visual hierarchy should be. They're going to have a problem communicating aboutness, which is, one of the links I put, and scroll down to the bibliography because the bibliography is awesome. I went to the library science school at U of I, and that's something that I find that gateway sites don't do is they don't make it clear what you want people to do on the site. So a directory, advisory board, center affiliates. Okay. All right. What if this is an investor? What do you want the investors to do?
Well,
I
they should probably want to go to our research first and then second to our news and events.
That's what I thought. There is a report. Email me personally, and anybody can email me personally. I have a report on how to do nonprofit sites. and a site for investors. It's a report, and I've used it in teaching, and it's fantastic. And I think you would all love it. It's a PDF, so I'll have to upload it. But I will definitely, I think you'd be very interested in reading this. And just so you know, I used to live very close to the supercomputer when I was at school. So,
I'll ask you later where you lived.
right off of Green Street, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's not, some of these things are so easy to fix. Now, here's the thing though, look at AI systems and look at applied AI and foundational AI and look at how your navigation links look. They look very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, now, if I were on a mobile device, I see a person touch, because they're wondering if they can click on a link.
Mm-hmm.
So where am I supposed to go? So in order to find what's clickable and what's not on this page, you're forcing people to minesweep. And then when I look at Hal and Holly, they're clickable, but you can't tell. Because they're formatted the same way as unclickable content. So part of a not only a style guide, but also if you look at, remember how we saw on one of the design systems that had navigation, it tells you what it should be on unvisited status, what it should be on visited status, what it should be on hover, and what it should be on focus. So these not only go in your style guides, but they also go in your pattern libraries. So I would say your main thing with this is the minesweeping and just reformatting your reformatting what's clickable and what's not, and get a very, very clear visual hierarchy. And the site just needs more content.
Thank you.
So does anybody else want to volunteer something? I love U of I. Dun, dun, dun.
So maybe try the DPI site. Let me
Okay.
use the URL. It is also with the University of Illinois, and they have, you know, you have to use some of the templates. Of course, the university wants to see it, but there's also some freedom for things. So let's see what you think about that one.
Well, first of all, green's my favorite color, but that helps me agree. But I am not your target audience. So what do you want people to do? What's the main thing you want people to do?
Oh, I wanted to say that is exactly our main audience. We have different groups. So we want them, first of all, we have 3 departments. One is really focused on workforce development, starting at high school, to bring STEM to them, computer science, programming, internships over the summer, things like that. Then we have students and science teams, really researchers.
Okay.
And then we have industry and people who would like to collaborate from the industry perspective with us. And so the goal really of DPI is to bring academia and industry together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The next workforce development, that people already start in high school to be able, you know, to learn some programming, for example. So you have really, and you want to address funding agencies and foundations, and really also people like, you know, from the city of Chicago who can give funding. And we have, for example, funding from Pritzker. And, you know, there's a lot.
Yes.
So therefore, our page has to be appealing to all these different groups. And I think that is a really tough job.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And what's nice about this is everything looks like it's in the right place. And everything looks
Can
like
you
it's,
share your screen maybe?
oh, I'm
also?
sorry. I thought I was sharing already. It's one of those picky things about this particular computer, so I apologize about that. Everything's in the, it looks like everything's in the right place because you have up here, that's good. I'm just going to check this DPI team about, I would put breadcrumb links, should always start with home and then go to this, and they're usually line it up here because this is going to get very long.
Yeah.
Hear about this stuff. So, and then I'm going to do the same thing I just did. Oh, this looks actually, look at this. This and this. DPI vision. Okay, what am I supposed to click on here?
For example, click on applied R&D. That is the area I'm still in until Wednesday.
Okay.
It's research and development.
Okay, so this is research and development, but I don't know how I'm supposed to get there. Oh. Okay. This is something that was extraordinarily well done on the homepage, and I am so glad to see this. Whenever you do any kind of sliders, you guys, they have to be user initiated, because the first thing the eyes, for people who are well sighted, the first thing the eyes detect is motion. So if you want people to pay attention to something, that's when you use motion, and it shouldn't be shouting at you. You know what I mean? So this is nice because when people hover over this, so if you have something that drops down, I would put a little, the down arrow, or you can even put an upside down triangle and just put it next to it so people know that it's something is going to appear. So there's nothing wrong with that. I know Pritzker, but what's nice about this is you have clean energy, sustainable transportation. And so this looks like this is news. So you're calling attention to the news. So this should be more important. And you have play video here. And I don't know if you know this, but the W3C does not recommend something called overlays. So make sure that there's an alternative to this overlay. But I love this play video because you're not playing it automatically. It would help that people could be able to turn it on and turn it off whenever they want. WTTW, read the story. And this one's better because this one tells me how long the video is.
Yeah.
This one doesn't tell me how long this video is. And then, is that all you want me to do? Or do you want people to, if they don't want to watch a video, what do you want them to do?
I wanted to say when you go up again, because that is, I will give that feedback back, because this is not news. It's really the different aspects there. And yeah, so this
is actually very well done. So this is an example of a overlay. So you get that might, I don't know if that's your site, but I'm just telling you, be careful with overlays. So the wastewater data and Oh, I love the dog. Well, and my nieces would be in your target audience because they are math whizzes. So I'm very proud of them. And I'm going to send you a copy of this report too, because I can tell that your keywords in there, and then this tells you, you tell people what you want them to do, and everything is user initiated. So how to give, it lights up. It lights up. So there just needs to be something here, just the little drop down menu. You don't have to have it, but it would help.
Okay. Okay.
And lots of content. View the recording.
Recording. Oh yeah.
Listen to the recording.
Yeah.
April IRTC. Okay, you got to Iowa. You got to spell this out.
Yeah.
And look at this. That's hard to read.
It is. Yeah.
That would pass accessibility. And this is great content. It's a wall of text. It would be great if you could put inline text links in here that get people to do what you want them to do. Because what happens when you put a text link, like I'm just going to do solar power, what would happen if I put a text link there?
Mm-hmm.
It would stand out.
Yeah.
And look at this, spelling out abbreviations. A lot of people don't know the difference between AI and machine learning. So no, this is, everything's where it's supposed to be. Breadcrumb links, you know, I would take what's up here and move it to the left side of the page. And the reason for that is how people in the West read. And your target audience, that's something your entire target audience is like. They tend to read left to right. So so this is good because this has a nice even wall. Hey, Noreen, would you mind sticking this in WebAIM for me? Because I think the text here is fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we have worldwide partners. Yeah.
WebAIM, and if Noreen can't do it right now, it's okay. She'll stick the link in, but it's free. But this really, so every now and again, spell out what DPI is, because you want people to know DPI is Discovery Partners Institute, part of the Illinois system. You've got the mission statement. You have news and events next to each other. Let me take a look at search. Okay, it pops up. Search results. Okay, that you have to do a different search results page because I always do that. For this is really good advice for everybody. Deliberately make mistakes in your forms and see how your system handles it. Because what you want is, this is part of usability, is error prevention and recovery. So when I type in nonsense in search results, you know, I want to see, I typed this in, there are no results for this, encourage me to do another search. Or if did you mean this? So let me do another search. Okay, I just typed it, misspelled math tutors. I should have gotten something, at least with the word math in it. So the search results aren't fuzzy, they're accurate. And you want fuzzy search results. So oh, do you know Dr. Michael Twydale at University of Illinois? He's my academic advisor. He's a search expert.
Oh, okay. No, I don't.
I can probably introduce you to him. Because he could probably do this in one of his classes, because he definitely does sites like this, especially if they're in the University of Illinois system for the classes. And it's early enough, and he could probably do this in the spring semester if you ask nice. I'll get you in touch with him. See, and it helps to know people. This is great. No, this is actually very well done. It's got the right amount of stuff, login. Yeah, you did. This was very well done. Apply today. Yeah, that's an easy change. Apply today. That's easier to read. I'm a research scientist. Nice.
So you should feel also addressed.
I love this. And it's the right color scheme. It's friendly. It's inclusive. Like I said, there's no such thing as a perfect site. There really isn't. And anything that I said is easy from a programming perspective to modify. The search, you'd have to work with a search professional. And I know but Dr. Twydale teaches search because that's his specialty.
Sounds good.
And I still stay in touch with him. So that's why I'm more than happy to get you guys in touch with each other. So here's another quick tip. Whenever you do a site map, okay, now I'm going to go back. On a site map, you have to communicate visited and unvisited links, because that really irritates users. And it's so easy to fix. So if you have a site map or a site index, visited and unvisited links must be communicated clearly. Test page. What is test page? I love it. Noreen, we got to put a test page on our site. And we'll make it really bad so everybody will link to it because it's so bad. No, this is one of the better, definitely one of the better sites that I've seen. So very nicely done. Very nicely done.
Okay.
Kudos. Okay, does anybody else? I want to see a Hawaii site. I can't help it. Let's do this. Let me get back into Google. Dun, 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 dun. Geo. Not George Hall. Geosciences. Ooh, this one's a good one. Can you see my screen? Hawaii's loading.
Oh, no, we can see your screen. Yeah.
All right, stop share, and then I'm going to reshare. Share screen.
Oh, see. Huh. Do you
I
see it?
have a very slow internet connection today. I don't know if it's raining out by you, Sandra, but it is by me. So, Big Blue. Just so you know, in our poster on Monday, Earth Sciences did extraordinarily well for accessibility. So I just wanted you guys to know that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do Hawaii, because Earth Sciences at University of Hawaii is really important. So this is something that I know this isn't a gateway site, but this is something that you can see as gorgeous as these pictures are. And I've been there. Notice that you can't, this is something called pause, Pauzese, on hover. So I'm going to put my cursor over this. Did it stop? That's what you want to happen if you're going to have things move. It's called pause on hover. And the way Sandra's site was doing it was it was 1 of 8, 2 of 8, 3 of 8, 4 of 8, and the user had complete control over how fast something moved. So the one thing that's really well done about this is there's a pause on hover. So that's really well done. So home, about, people, research, academics, course info. I don't know what the heck Jedi is, but I want to be one. So let's see what it is. Justice, equality, diversity, and inclusion. That's really nice. Yeah, and at that university, that's important. So breadcrumb links needed. Does this take up 1/3 of the screen? Probably, but it's a good picture. So I'd probably keep it. Department of Earth Sciences. So we promote justice. Yep. Committee. I can't tell what this, you want people, whoever does University of Hawaii Department of Earth Sciences, I can't tell what you want people to do when they land on this page. I just saw huli because I like huli chicken. Now this page is better because it tells me what you want me to what you want me to do, but I think it opened a window and I didn't know it was going to open a window. Can you tell how very little this changes when I put my mouse over it? So it's just a style sheet thing. And the easiest thing to do with these, because this is kind of hard to read, so this should be a different color. Just put an underline on it over the hover. So that would be very, very helpful. Home, about, people. I'm hoping you're okay. Faculty, grad students, alum. That's expected. Overview. Wow, that's a great picture. Okay, learn about our research facilities. And instead of themes, which is too general, do research themes. And people should be able to stop this animation. So there should be a stop. Not just pause on hover, but stop. In fact, that's one of the biggest, I wanted to say this just so the Science Gateways people know, is that is one of the biggest mistakes we saw on the life sciences sites previous to this. There's been improvement since COVID, but one of the biggest mistakes we saw is the animations would often move so fast that people didn't get a chance to read them. And also you have to watch out with people who have cognitive disorders, particularly epilepsy, or people that get seizures. And medications, believe it or not. So a person might not have epilepsy, but they could be prone to seizures due to side effects of medications. So, but Earth Sciences, just so you know, did extraordinarily well on our most recent research. Okay, so did you see what I did? We went to a website, saw 2 or more patterns that could be changed, some of them really easy. And why was it important? Couldn't read it. I couldn't tell it was a link. Mind sweeping. Identify items that your site should not have. Not starting an animation unless the user initiates it. If you're going to do a slider, tell me how many items are in that slide. 1 of 8, 2 of 8, 3 of 8, 4 of 8. Pause on hover, things like that. That's how you start for your pattern library. Now, keep in mind, I've been doing this a long time, so I can identify patterns. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me or any of us at the IA Gateway. We are more than happy to help you. And also grab me at the conference if you want. I'll look at anything, almost anything. Okay, so are there any questions? Do we need another 10-minute break?
I think a break would be good for the next topic.
Okay, so we'll stop share. 10 minutes for everybody. And we'll end on time. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. All right, everybody. So can we see my screen?
Yes.
And it is a fat footer. And this is a what not to do. And why is it a what not to do? Because a footer is not a sitemap. A sitemap is a separate page. And also, you don't put the contact us in the government section. So this whole thing as a design pattern is really, really faulty. So if you run into this where somebody's trying to just overstuff the footer, start with the government legal, or I call it the legal area. Start with that, and if you can get people to limit this to the links that should be there, then tackle one section at a time, and then go back to that doormat navigation with the funny name, and that would be your better solution. The other thing that I'm seeing people not do is allowing people to resize text easily. It doesn't take up that much room. And if you want, you can put share icons here. They fit. And that way, this doesn't interrupt. Do you see how these are all lined up? And then you can put whatever share at the bottom of the content area. And so the way we broke this up is this is actually a graphic image because this is going to be on every services page. And automation services is something that's very specific, that's very general. And we want to lead people into deeper pages. And we don't want this to be the H1, the primary heading, because it's on all the automation services pages. So we can either just not make this an H1, just make it a paragraph, or you can just make it a graphic image because there's other things on this page. So that's how you start, is identify a problem, identify an area, and decide, okay, let's start easy. Let's start with breadcrumbs, or let's start easy. Let's start can we do these accessibility items? Let's start with the share icons. Can we do the share icons and put them in the same spot at the top of the page and put them in the same spot at the bottom of the page? And do we put them in the right order? So these are just a list of tools. I am not saying that I'm endorsing them. I'm just letting you know that there's a lot of tools. The one thing I will say for every single one of these, and I really dislike Adobe, as you can see, even though I use it all the time, is have, again, an accessibility expert and a search expert review the code. Because if it's not accessible to both humans as well as the technologies that the humans use, then the site is not going to be viewed as trustworthy. And we definitely want that to be one of the top things people view your site as. So that's that. And my computer is being a little slow. So these are just some links, and what I'm trying to do is pick works best for you. So this is from a government website, and so what they put in their pattern library is what it is, what it helps, start identifying, describe it, and considerations for use in government. So 1 to 2 hours per pattern and ongoing maintenance, that's pretty standard, but some things might take longer. You know, and like I said, there are going to be some complex patterns, and there are going to be some very simple patterns. Like I said, a lot of what I'm seeing was actually pretty good. All you have to do is modify the colors. And color modification is pretty straightforward. So identify a pattern and what it needs to fulfill. If you can combine patterns, like if you can combine short codes, that would be great. Or if you can take a short code that already exists but it's not quite finished, like the table I described, do that. And you're going to have to test the pattern on humans as well as technologies. And so that you would have to work directly with a search engine optimizer and an accessibility person with. And then you'll modify it. And if something changes in artificial intelligence, if something changes in search, if something changes, these people have enough experience where the changes they make are going to be evergreen, so they're going to last a long time. Usability testing, I love to use Optimal Sort or Optimal Workshop. Again, I don't get paid for anything, so if I endorse something, I genuinely use it. But I also highly recommend that you work with your own universities or your university network, because people want these for their classes. University of Michigan is huge for wanting people for usability testing. MIT is another place, even Stanford and Berkeley. So, and then everybody has to sign off, commit to the pattern, and publish it. And then monitor it on your web analytics. So this is, I love this graphic image because I think it communicates exactly. A style guide is very specific. Pattern library is larger, and the whole design system consists of a pattern library and a style guide. The reason I picked this wasn't just because I like the image, it's also because the URL structure, a URL is a label. So make sure your labels are clear. This is a terrible label because it's using underscores instead of hyphens. It has percentage signs, which it shouldn't have. And it says illustration scaling.png. when people, and Noreen knows a lot about this too, is when a screen reader is reading a graphic image, they're actually reading its URL and its alternative text. So can you imagine a screen reader reading this to you? So be very careful with how you label things. In usability, the goal is to strike a balance between user goals and expectations and balance them with the business goals. There's some usability tests that are so easy to do. One of them is the expectancy test, and it's so simple, everybody here can do it. All you do is you just ask somebody who fits your target audience, and you ask them, what do you expect will happen if you click here? Or if you tap here, if you're on a mobile device or a touch screen. And what you're after is what people think will happen. So don't click on it, because people will say, oh, I expected it to do that. No. If they expected it to do that, they would have said something, and they didn't. And you don't need that many users. I try to do 15 people per user group, but if you can get people, at least 15 people, and that tells you what their mental model is, if it's supposed to be, if you're going to get what people want. And sometimes people say nothing. I don't expect nothing. I don't expect to see anything. And if somebody's expecting to see something and they answer nothing, then there's something that has to change in your pattern library, and I would make that a priority. So and then I use Peter Morville's user experience honeycomb. And usable, findable, credible means trustworthy. Is it of value to both users as well as the website owners? Is there useful content? Is it desirable content? And if people can't access it, they can't figure out if it's usable, findable, valuable. And it's very irritating if somebody can find it, but they can't access the content. So this is from the book, and this is used with permission, and I highly recommend that you get this book. It's very good on teaching you the fundamentals of user experience. These are usability heuristics that have been around since forever, and there's a link to the poster. So Chris was asking earlier, why do we want this? What is the problem we are trying to solve? And these usability heuristics can answer this. So let's say you're doing a form and you fill out the form and something's wrong with it. And you're trying to fix it. What is the problem? The problem is error prevention and handling on this form. What are we trying to fix? We want people to fill out the form. So this is what we're going to do. And from this point forward, this is going to be our design pattern. And then recovering from errors is also a part of error prevention and handling. The other thing is you have people's goals and expectations, and you also have different devices and softwares. One of the things I love to do, I'd love to do this with voice devices, is I don't know if you guys know this, but voice devices are programmed mostly for the voice range of a male between in his 30s or 40s. And it does not account for people who are just aging, just getting older. And so whenever I am at my mom's house or somebody who has a voice interface, I tell them to lower their voice. They said, you sound like this, instead of don't get your voice higher and higher, because for some strange reason, voice interfaces do not accommodate speech, and they don't accommodate people who have speech disabilities as well. So think of stuttering, or somebody who has a lisp, or even a child. So what if what if children is going to be part of your voice interface? I couldn't pronounce a lot of words when I was a kid. My last name is Thurow. Imagine what I sounded like without two front teeth. And so that's why my mother, who was a teacher, she had people call her Ms. T because they couldn't say thorough. You can extrapolate wireframes and prototypes to see how they would sound on a voice device. So I definitely like to use test on voice devices because that's how a lot of people find things. They not only use it on their voice device, they also do it on their phones. So it must be accessibility compliant. And this is just American with Disabilities Act. And here's some accessibility compliant references. Noreen has a lot more. I believe this last link, I know this is ours, the Information Architecture Gateway. I should have a URL list on how to name your URLs and guidelines. And if I don't have it on that one, I will make sure that it will be re-uploaded with this one. So you have that. And for me, I'm very interested in search technologies, not only people typing in text, but also image search and also video search. So, and people look for images very differently than they look for videos. And people search on voice differently than they search when they're typing or they're keyboarding. So, and search engines are the #1 way that people locate and discover content. So that is why I have my interests. So, and one of the things that is in the accessibility guidelines is your site has to be robust. So it should accommodate search engines. So exercise 2 is again something we can do together, is giving your pattern a unique name and consider different versions or variations. What problem does it solve? Why you solved it, so the context. Remember how I said context is something very important. You might use something in one context on one part of your website, but in a different context on another part. Explain how and when to use it. Include relationships to other UI patterns. You find that people do perform better when you have really meaningful relationships, and definitely include references. That is the reason I did all of those references for you. So let's just do this one. It's images. So I'm giving you a design pattern. Is, let's say you are talking about pollen and allergies. There's all kinds of different pollen. There's tree pollen and there's flower pollen, and there's the pollen that comes in August. So there's spring pollen and summer and fall pollen. Okay, this is the layout I would normally do, and this is why. Because this is an image heading, a short description, and pictured as a magnified view of the sunflower pollen. This is the photo, and it would be named sunflower -pollen, probably photo. If not photo, I would make it a JPEG as a file format, because a JPEG indicates that it's a photo or a high illustration, but I would definitely use photo in the alt text if I didn't use it in the file name. And these are social media icons for sharing images. And they're put in order of importance. And why did I do this? It's Fitts law. Fitts law states that if you want the call to action, you want people to share this photo that you have. So if it's a photo of your new technology, it's a photo of your department, it's a photo of what you offer, or if it's a video of what you offer, put the social media icons near it So it's very easy for people to share it. So this would be my, I would call this medium photo. This would be my medium photo with a heading and a caption. Okay. And the reason I chose this is thumbnails. You go back, you'll see that it's on the right. Oops, sorry about that. And that's why I put it there. Now, this one's slightly different because now I'm aligning things to how people naturally read. So I have a nice image heading here. So I'm surrounding the image with important words, but I'm still making it very, very easy to share this image. So I would do the exact same thing that I did with the other one, but then I would say, you know, this is a more prominent heading, an image heading. This would be my third choice. So it's almost exactly the same. It's just I flip-flop. The only thing I did was flip-flop. And this would probably be my last choice. But the one thing I did change in here is I made sure, because an image like this, look at it, has millions of colors. So if you have a natural call to action and you'd rather have a call to action be taken, I'd rather the call to action be here than here, because this is where people's eyes naturally go. So this has an image heading, a large caption, and a small caption. So these are 4 different ways that you can make a pattern library for images. And there are big images, you know, and there's smaller ones, so thumbnails. The other thing too is this could be translated to a video. So you just would have to have video indicators, the ability to start and stop a video. These would be video sharing icons. And you always tell people how long the video will last. So can you see how these design patterns, what you want, a unique name, its purpose? Why did you choose this pattern? What is the context of use? Are there relationships to other patterns and references as needed? This is how you start a pattern library. And it gets bigger and bigger and more specific, more technical. So I would probably separate it from people who don't have coding skills and then people who do have coding skills, and make sure you have a third party test it to make sure that your pattern library is working. So are there any, so did I give you enough pattern library, patterns to start your library or to update your library? Or are there any patterns you'd like me to show before we end this wonderful video?
I think this is a
May-
great start.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What was mentioned was the idea of picking a name
Yeah.
for the pattern library. Now, the idea of, you know, starting, you know, up the whole collection, would it possibly be needed to go back and review some of the earlier names that were given as the pattern library grows, that maybe there could be a realization that an early label, you know, was not so suitable?
Yes, I would definitely do that. Especially, that's why I showed that, where's that horrible URL? Oh gosh, that's a terrible, where is it? That's one of the reasons I showed this, you know, to be honest with you, the article that contains this image is fantastic, but this is not an effective label. And so that's why this is where information architects are your right hand men and right hand women and right hand everybody, because that's their natural aptitude, is labeling things. So if a label doesn't work, why? And that might be part of redefining your patterns. I often find that I have to do small, medium, and large. I also find that I have to do, for content, short, medium, long content. This is short content, do this. Medium content, do this. Long content, do this. For example, long content, I usually try to break up with scannability elements, such as headings and subheadings and items like that. Putting a graphic image with a caption also helps people. But we also don't want to create something called a false bottom, where people feel they've reached the end of content when there's more content underneath it. So that's a negative pattern that you want to avoid. That was redundant. Negative pattern you want to avoid. That was brilliant. Please don't tell my English teacher I said that. But yeah, definitely reviewing what your current labeling system is. And I ask people straight out, do you have a formal labeling system? And then, I usually get a blank expression as the reaction. And it's okay, because it gives you an opportunity to start from scratch and learn from other good, effective pattern libraries and work from there. And believe me, if you're at a university, you have students who do have those aptitudes, and they're dying to work on something, and you have to make them work. You can't just say, this isn't about your personal opinion, this isn't about your portfolio. Explain to me, so I go into Google Scholar, I go into, LexisNexis, I go into all these different search engines. I actually sit down and talk to reference librarians, because I think they're the coolest people on the planet, and talk with them and look for good resources, because you don't want all these biases when you're coming up with a good labeling system. But I've always done small, medium, large with photos. I've also done short, medium, long content. And think about it. The longer your content, the more scannability elements you need. The shorter the content, the less scannability elements you need. And you have to use scannability elements well. Like I said, I tend to put a photo next to a call to action if the photo is appropriate for that page, because a photo has millions of colors and eyes naturally go to millions of colors. So I will be at the event, so I hope to see you all there. I will also be joining Noreen tomorrow. So feel free to contact me for the report. And if there's anything I can help you guys with, I am more than happy to help. I know a lot of really talented people. So is there anything else? And by the way, I would start, let me escape here. I would start with that library, the one that seemed really, really, overly simple. That design library is actually a very good way to start. Problem, solution, example, citation, use when, how, why. More examples, references, and related. this is a really, really good way to start a pattern library, and you don't need a lot to start. You know, start with the footer, start with the top of page content, start with graphic images and videos, and you got a pattern library.